அஸ்ஸலாமு அலைக்கும் அன்புக்குரிய நண்பர்களே, தாயகத்து உறவுகளே, இந்த காணொளி ஒரு முக்கியமான காணொளி. பாகிஸ்தான் பிரதம மந்திரி இம்ரான் கான் அவர்கள் மிடில் ஈஸ்ட் ஐ எனப்படக்கூடிய ஊடகத்துக்கு வழங்கிய ஒரு கலந்துரையாடல். இந்த கலந்துரையாடலில் முக்கியமான பல விடயங்கள் ஆராயப்பட்டது. அவரிடத்தில் குறிப்பாக ஆப்கானிஸ்தானுடைய போக்கு பற்றியும் தலிபானுடைய நிலைமை பற்றியும் அவரிடத்தில் கேட்கப்பட்டது. அதே வேளையில் அமெரிக்காவுடன் அவர் ஏதேனும் விடயங்களை கலந்துரையாடினாரா என்பதையும் கேள்வியாக எழுப்பப்பட்டது. அந்த இடத்தில் அவர் ஆப்கானிஸ்தானை பற்றி இதுவரை எந்த விதமான பேச்சுவார்த்தைகளையும் மேற்கொள்ளவில்லை என்பதையும் அவர் தெளிவுபடுத்தினார். அதேவேளை ஒரு முக்கியமான ஒரு கேள்வியினை இம்ரான் கானிடம் அந்த ஊடகவியலாளர் முன்வைத்தார். ஒரு உலக முஸ்லிம் தலைவர் என்ற வகையில் உங்களுடைய அண்டை நாடான சைனா உங்களுடன் மிகவும் சிறந்த தொடர்பை வைத்துக் கொள்ளக்கூடிய ஒரு நாடு, உய்குர் முஸ்லீம்களுடைய விஷயத்தில் அவர்களை ஒடுக்கி ஆழ்ந்து அநியாயம் புரிந்து கொண்டு இருப்பதை பற்றி அவர்களிடத்தில் நீங்கள் இது சார்பாக கதைத்தீர்களா என்று கேட்கப்பட்ட போது, சைனா தங்களுடைய நாட்டுக்கு மிகவும் உதவி செய்திருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு நாடு, தங்களுடன் ஒரு சிறந்த தொடர்பை வைத்திருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு நாடு, நாங்கள் பொது இடங்களில் அவர்களை விமர்சித்து இது சம்பந்தமாக கதைக்கவில்லை. ஆனால் அவர்களிடத்தில் கேட்கப்பட்ட கேள்விகளுக்கு அவர்கள் தகுந்த விளக்கங்களை எங்களுக்கு தந்திருக்கிறார்கள். எனவே அந்த உள்நாட்டு விவகாரத்தில் நாங்கள் அவ்வளவு குடைவது நல்லதல்ல என்பது போன்ற ஒரு கருத்தினை அவர் முன்வைத்தார். இதே போன்று காஷ்மீர் விவகாரத்தில் இந்தியாவை குறை கூறிய இம்ரான் கான் இஸ்ரேலுடன் சேர்ந்து கொண்டு இந்தியா அநியாயங்களை புரிகின்றதாக குற்றச்சாட்டுகளை வைத்ததோடு பாலஸ்தீன் விவகாரங்களுக்காக இஸ்ரேலை கண்டித்து கதைத்தார். அதேவேளை உலக அரங்கில் இன்று நடக்கக்கூடிய இஸ்லாமோபோபியாவை முழுமையாக எதிர்த்த இம்ரான் கான் நபிகளார் ஸல்லல்லாஹு அலைஹி வஸல்லம் அவர்களை இன்று இழிவுபடுத்தி பல மேற்கத்திய நாடுகளில் நடக்கக்கூடிய ஈனத்தரமான கேவலமான செய்கைகளையும் அவர் வன்மையாக கண்டித்தார். பிரான்சின் ஜனாதிபதி மக்ரோன் போன்றவர்களை எதிர்த்த இம்ரான் கான், பாலஸ்தீன் போன்ற சில நாடுகளுக்கு குரல் கொடுத்த இம்ரான் கான், காஷ்மீர் மக்களுக்காக போராடும் இம்ரான் கான், உய்குர், இலங்கை, ரோஹிங்கியா முஸ்லிம்கள் விவகாரத்தில் மட்டும் மௌனம் சாதிப்பதன் காரணம் சைனாவுக்கு அவர் படிந்து போகிறார் என்பதை புலப்படுத்துகிறது. எது எப்படியாகினும் அவருடைய முழுமையான காணொளியை உங்களுக்காக சமர்ப்பிக்கின்றோம்.
Believe me, Taliban are the best bet to get rid of ISIS. That is the only option left, 19, because that's what Israel has done. They have just built such a strong security apparatus, and they just crush anything. They will send people in, they will kill, assassinate, and then they have total immunity. They, whatever the United Nations General Assembly says, they have complete confidence in the veto power which the US has in the Security Council. So they get away with anything. And what is Islamophobia? People do not realize radical Islam, moderate Islam. I mean, in the West, how does a man in the street? So all Muslims then, and especially anyone who has a sort of symbol of Muslimness, so they became targets and they got insulted. I'm not talking about people who got beaten up or, killed. I'm talking about normal people being abused in the streets in the Western countries just because they look Muslim. They cannot understand the love, respect, reverence we have for our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. People love him more than anything. Respect and love for him is paramount in our religion. All I wanted them to understand is no one should be allowed to cause pain to human communities if we have to live in a sort of global village. Therefore, we Muslims must every human community must define what gives them pain. This is what gives us pain. So all you have to do is not mock and ridicule and insult it, our Prophet.
Prime Minister, have we reached an inflection point in world history with the departure of the US from Central Asia? Will the region now pivot towards China as the investor and de facto security umbrella?
David, it's too early to say. Right now, events in Afghanistan are still evolving. People like us don't know where it's going to go. But the US presence no longer there. There's obviously going to be a vacuum. Who's going to fill it? China is obviously the emerging power. But the way we look at it is that, and having spoken to all the regional countries surrounding Afghanistan, everyone thinks that this is a great opportunity because Afghanistan is the trade corridor between all our countries. Central Asian countries connected to Pakistan and the Indian Ocean through Afghanistan, Iran, access to Central Asia. So it's a very important country in that way. And what we would really like is that it's no longer either you're in US camp or China camp. I feel that it should be what this whole region needs, economic ties, economic connectivity. That's what we are looking for.
Which brings us on very quickly to the issue of sanctions, which are being talked about. Perhaps you could talk, what is your view on that?
It's a critical point for Afghanistan. The world must engage with Afghanistan. Because if it pushes it away, within the Taliban movement, I would imagine there would be hardliners. And so it can easily go back to the Taliban of 2000, 20 years ago. So therefore, a stable Afghanistan government, which can then take on ISIS, and believe me, Taliban are the best bet to get rid of ISIS. That is the only option left. Isolating them, sanctioning them is going to, apart from anything else, apart from the chaos, it is going to be such a huge humanitarian crisis. So I think it's a critical time, and the US has to sort of really pull itself together because people in the United States are in a state of shock. It seems that they were imagining some sort of a democracy or nation building or liberated women, and suddenly they find Taliban back. But unless the US takes the lead, we are worried here that chaos in Afghanistan, we are the country which will be affected more after that.
What did President Biden say when you put these points to him, as I imagine you will have done?
No, I haven't spoken to President Biden as yet.
You haven't spoken to President Biden?
Well, it's up to him. It's a superpower.
You're the next door neighbour to Afghanistan. They've just spent it's in the situation you say. Whether the Americans like it or not, you have an immense influence on the country. And President Biden has not spoken to you. I find that absolutely astonishing.
Our security chiefs have spoken. Our foreign minister has been in touch with the US foreign secretary. But no, we haven't spoken, but we are in touch.
What role do you expect China to play in Afghanistan, and how would you typify Pakistan's relationship with China now?
David, the Pakistan-China relationship is 70 years old. And it is probably one relationship which has stood the test of time. In all our ups and downs, China stood with us. In all different, when I'm talking about these drone attacks and the terrorism in Pakistan because we joined the US, our economy, our debt in 10 years, 2000 to 2018, it went up 4 times from the total debt accumulated till 2008. In the next 10 years, it went up 10 times. So who was the country that came to our help? We were going belly up. It was China who helped us. And so therefore, our relationship in that sense, people remember, you always remember those who helped you in your difficult times.
It does. Why? The Uyghurs, there's no question that you are a senior Muslim leader, global, and you have been silent about what, at the very least, is a serious oppression of a Muslim minority in a neighboring country. Why is that?
You see, Peter, I find these selective pronouncements on human rights, I think it is so immoral. Now, China is one neighbor, the other neighbor is India. In Kashmir, there are 900,000 troops who've put 8 million Kashmiris in open prison. They have over 100,000 Kashmiris have died since 1989. What they are doing in Kashmir right now, and the UN reports saying what they are doing. Not one word of criticism in India, not just that, what they are doing to the minorities in India, to the Muslims in India, Muslims in Assam, the laws they have passed. It's a total racist government. Now, what I find so...
We're going to come... Kashmir is a very serious subject. We really want to come on to that. But
no, but Peter, I'm following from there. Now, they want us to criticize what's happening to the Uyghurs. We have spoken to China. The Chinese are given an explanation what is happening there. And our relationship with China is such that we have an understanding that between us, we will talk to each other, but behind closed doors, because that's their nature, their culture. We do not talk about it in public. But in public, all I want to say is that why is there not such indignance about what is happening in Kashmir by the same countries that want us to talk about the Uyghurs.
All this seems incredibly familiar to Palestinians, what's happening to Indian-controlled Kashmir. But how dangerous is the liaison between Israel and India right now?
I feel that, well, they are very close, I mean, should we read anything into it that Narendra Modi visits Israel and then he comes back and clamps down on Kashmir and, the events of 5th August 2019, because that's what Israel has done. They have just built such a strong security apparatus and they just crush anything. They will send people in, they will kill, assassinate, and then they have total immunity. They, whatever the United Nations General Assembly says, they have complete confidence in the veto power which the US has in the Security Council. So they get away with anything. And I feel that India feels, because now it is being used, or it is considered a bulwark against China, they are now part of the Quad. I feel it's the same thing. India can get away with anything. My whole point is that when they ask us to comment on human rights elsewhere, the worst human rights violation is in Kashmir. Nowhere, maybe in Israel, but nowhere are things as bad as they are in Kashmir.
I wonder if I could change the subject and quote what I think are very prescient words from your book about Islamophobia in Europe. The ascent of right-wing anti-immigration parties in Europe, the misleading and sometimes downright sensationalist reporting against Muslims in the right-wing Western media, France's ban on the burqa, and so on. Nothing's got any better, have it, as it has it over the last 7 years since you wrote those words.
What is Islamophobia? People do not realize radical Islam, moderate Islam. I mean, in the Western, how does a man in the street? So all Muslims then, and especially anyone who has a sort of symbol of Muslimness, like wearing a head cover or a beard, although by the way, beards have become quite fashionable now. I hear everyone trendy wears a beard now. But so they became targets and they got insulted. I'm not talking about people who got beaten up or, killed. I'm talking about normal people being abused in the streets in the Western countries just because they look Muslim. And secondly, there's this other thing which started with Salman Rushdie. People in the West do not treat religion like we do. They cannot understand the love, respect, reverence we have for our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. People love him more than anything. Respect and love for him is paramount in our religion. That look, you can write, there's so many interpretations of the life of the Prophet, Western interpretations, no one comments on it, but don't ridiculous him, don't mock him, don't insult him. Just like, and I quote this, Holocaust, it caused a lot of pain to the Jewish community. So, even interpretations which do not, which are not misinterpretation of Holocaust, I mean, there are countries in Europe where there's a jail sentence for that because it causes pain to them. All I wanted them to understand is no one should be allowed to cause pain to human communities if we have to live in a sort of global village. Therefore, we Muslims must every human community must define what gives them pain. This is what gives us pain. So all you have to do is not mock and ridicule and insult it, our Prophet, but their interpretations. You can write history. I read his historical books all the time by the Western writers about Holy Prophet and their interpretation, which we don't agree with, but no one objects to it.